attacked one of Amazon's main servers. And you're like, well, that's no big deal. Actually, it is a huge deal. The people that hold all of the information are three companies. You may have heard of them, okay? Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. 95% of all the information that's out there that is in a memory form is on one of their platforms. When Amazon's one server went down, it affected 29 million people. People were trying to run their card and the debit machines weren't working, or they were trying to withdraw funds from this account over there, or trying to go to Robinhood to buy the latest, greatest, brightest, shiniest 2-cent stock, okay? All these different things were taking place. People, where you lived, you couldn't watch online videos. You couldn't access this over here or that over there. In certain parts of the country, small towns' grids went down. And you're like, well, why is that a big deal? It's a big deal because most are not ready. They're not prepared. They're depending on someone else and something else for their livelihood. And you have to wait until your Lord comes back, do you not? I mean, here's the thing. I need to have everything I need as I'm waiting for the Lord to come back and as I'm living. And most people, they don't know what's coming. Guys, let me ask you a question. The grid goes down. How are you going to keep the food that's in your deep freezer, in your refrigerator, refrigerated? Man, it's going to come back up. You know, in storms, it comes back up. Let's say it doesn't come back up. Okay, how are you going to keep the food in your fridge cool, okay, and that which you have in your deep freezer? I'm just asking, okay? Midwinter, do you have a fireplace? A lot of you would say yes, a lot of you would say no. You got a fireplace, you have a heating source. How are you going to heat yourself if there's no electricity? Let me ask you this. In most towns like mine, they have a huge water tank. And that water tank supplies water to the whole community. After it's filtered, after it's clean, after it's chlorinated, it goes to the top of the water tank by a pump. You got about 8 days worth of water for the whole town up there. But when they no longer can pump water up there, when they no longer can clean it, when they can no longer treat it, okay, how are you going to get water? How are you going to drink water? Listen to what God says in the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 40. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come in an hour when you do not expect him. Well, Matt, we're talking about two different things. Are we? I'm waiting for the Lord to come back because I want to go to heaven. Okay, I think it's going to be in my generation because of the different things I've read, the different things that I've heard, but maybe it's not. Maybe I live out all of my days and the Lord doesn't come back. As I'm waiting on the Lord, I need certain things to survive in this life, okay? There are things that are written in the book of Revelation. Friends, you have to realize all of that is going to be fulfilled. Every bit of what is written in Daniel regarding the end days in the book of Revelation, it's going to come to pass. Let me say this, it will not come to pass in the manner, in the way that you think. I've been around some of the greatest theologians, and every last one of these guys, these doctorates, these PhDs, these men of God, these preachers, these pastors, these theologians, they all have different opinions about what's going to take place in the end. Whether the church goes through it, whether the church goes halfway through it, whether the church prior to anything happening. And friends, what I'm trying to tell you is everything that's in this book is going to be fulfilled. But when we look at the dire warnings of what Daniel said, Daniel told us there's going to be a time in the nations that no nation has ever experienced anything like this. The Bible tells us about birth pain. It uses a reference of Jacob's trouble, talking about Israel, talking about the world, talking about turmoil, talking about chaos, talking about a one world religion, a one world currency. And if you didn't take the mark of the beast, you can't buy and you can't sell. Am I going through that, Matt? It tells us a story, a parable about 10 virgins, and half had what they needed, but the other half did not have what they needed as they were waiting for their Lord. And in that story, which is the flip of a quarter, meaning it's spiritual, but it's also talking about us here today. The 5 virgins didn't have oil. That represents the Holy Spirit. They didn't have a relationship, meaning when God finally did come, they weren't ready for him. But oil in those days was useful for everything. Do you have oil in your heart and in your cupboard? The first time Jesus was sending out the disciples, what he told them, you don't need a coat. You don't need any currency. Go. If they receive you, bless that house. If they don't, shake the dust off of your feet, okay? Stay in the house where you go. Allow your blessing, allow me to flow through you onto those people. Preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. We love that. I mean, honestly, because God is enough in all of our lives. Another story in Luke, chapter 22, verse 36. Jesus is about to ascend to his heavenly Father and go and prepare a place for us. Where he is, we should be there also. Listen to this story. Listen to how things have changed up a little bit in sending the disciples out. And he said to them, but now, if you have a purse, take it. See, the first time he says, you don't need any money. Just go. But now he says, if you have a purse, take it. And a bag also. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Now he's telling them to take a purse, take money, take a bag. And you would think, hey, right now where I'm at, it's cold. I mean, I am really cold. You better give me a thumbs up because I am shivering, okay? But now he's saying, hey, if you have a cloak and you don't have a sword, go ahead and give your coat away, give your cloak away. You're going to need a sword. You're going to need to be prepared. That's what God is saying here as you're waiting for him. Jesus is coming back soon, okay? But listen very carefully. This was such a warning shot over the bow. I'm sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning because my hours are flipped. And all of a sudden, as I'm on Amazon, all of the pages go blank. And I was like, this is so weird. So I get out, I get back in, and some pages have pictures, some pages don't have pictures. I was reviewing something. It said, this service is not available. I was like, that's nuts. And I was like, well, I went to Prime Video and half the videos were gone. Okay. I start reading around the world that, here's the thing, we may be under a cyber attack, but all what took place was this was a cyber attack through AI. And they still haven't fixed this 4, 5, 6 days later. They haven't fixed it. It's affecting people. They don't have the access to the things that they're normally used to. Now, this is just one server of thousands of servers that Amazon has. But what if Microsoft falls off the grid, Google falls off the grid? What if there is an EMP? That's just one nuclear bomb exploded up there. The electric magnetic pulse destroys all of the infrastructure that you and I rely on. Stores are closed. Everything's closed. What I'm trying to tell you is this. There is a practical side to Christianity, and it's this. You need water. Do you have a way, okay, to get water out of a stream, to get water out of a lake, get water out of a well? Do you have a way to filter that water? Do you have a way to boil that water? That's my question. If the answer is no, then you need to get busy. You cannot be relying on turning the tap and thinking, oh, I'm going to always have water. That's not the case. Literally, that's not the case. From these small towns in North Carolina, when a storm came through and FEMA all but just ignored them. We were on vacation several years back, and some of the people that were in the whirlpool with Tracy and I were telling us the story how the government literally failed them. FEMA came in and ignored them. Elon Musk was sending in satellites for them, but they would not deliver them to them. They had lost everything, and they were up on a hill, and the infrastructure, they said that we felt like we were cave people. My wife told me, go hunt. I don't care if you have a license or not. Go get some meat into this family. And it's just crazy that they were just isolated. The roads were washed out and no one was there to help them. When was the last time that you read Revelation? And in your imagination, you just kind of filled in the blanks of the bowls, the seals, the trumpets, the thunderings. And you started wondering, well, how is this going to take place? That the majority of the drinkable water on the planet isn't usable anymore. Well, one suggestion is this: a supervolcano. That ash can ruin the water so you can't drink it. You know what they say it tastes like? Wormwood. What? Wormwood. That's in the book of Revelation. When you look at the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the beginning pages of the book of Revelation, what do you have? Well, you have the Antichrist coming along, okay, as a man of peace, as a conqueror. You have famine, you have death, you have pestilence, you have a system that has collapsed. When you look at Revelation 18, you have Babylon, the great Babylon failing. The world currency failing. This country that's surrounded by many waters that sits as a queen, okay, is no longer a country. She's no longer what she was at one time, and she's no longer buying and selling and promoting. It says that she's a place of jackals, and every demonic bird is in that country. When we look at that phrase, and we look at birds in the Bible, more times than not, when it's referring to birds, it's referring to evil spirits. It's referring to America. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says this: trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. You know what leaning on your own understanding is? Dismissing the things that God told you were going to take place because you've concluded in your great wisdom that you're not going to be here. I hope I'm not here. I hope I'm with the Lord. I hope it's the marriage supper of the Lamb. But friends, I'm here to tell you that there isn't a theologian, a pastor, okay, or any of these great preachers that can agree on how it's going to take place in the end days. They all know it's going to be fulfilled, every bit of it, but they don't know how it's going to be fulfilled. Friends, no one ever even heard of the rapture until Schofield came along. Did you realize that? When Schofield came along, and we have the Schofield Bible, the Schofield study notes, it was not taught. And yet, he comes along and he starts talking about the rapture. He's a dispensationalist, okay? And he starts talking about different things. And everyone just liked the fact that they were not going to suffer. And they started following the teachings of Schofield before anything got terrible here on planet Earth. Schofield tells me right here, I'm going to be raptured out. Friends, again, it's all going to be fulfilled, but it's not going to be fulfilled in the manner and the way that you can even see it or recognize it. But we know there are going to be famines. We know that there are going to be the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We know there's going to be, what? Trumpets, thunderings, okay? Judgments of God on a wicked world that has forsaken him. And God may be asking you, are you ready physically? Are you ready spiritually? The Bible tells us to be prepared in all sorts of ways. Spiritually speaking, my relationship with God, my devotion to God. Physically speaking, meaning this, that, I have what I need on a daily basis, thinking about tomorrow, but not worrying about tomorrow, trusting God. I don't think people think it's okay to prepare. And I'm not talking about having a freaking house full of nothing but dried beans. Friends, years back, there was a hurricane called Katrina. There was another one years later called Hurricane Sandy. One of the things that they learned, the government that is how fast things fall apart. They didn't believe that it was going to be as bad as it was. They weren't prepared for what took place. Again, this is our government. They didn't have a plan, and it was a fiasco. But more than that, both hurricanes, within about 72 hours of people not having what they needed, water, food, shelter, okay? Society, as you and I know it, started to break down on levels that astonished our government. They were like, we can't believe this, meaning that which you thought you would never see was taking place. And again, in Sandy, I remember watching large groups of men go house to house to house, just pillaging. I mean, just literally pillaging. And we had friends that went through Katrina, and they said it was a war zone. I mean, it was like the Old West. Anything went. I mean, it was almost like their lawlessness and the depravity of a man's soul, the darkness within them, just came out. They just did whatever they wanted to do. There was more rapes and murders in these two hurricanes and the aftermath than they could believe. They couldn't believe how many people after the fact say, I was raped. And they found this guy not drowned, but shot in the head. Okay, well, I'm shooting a guy in the head for his watch, for his wallet, for his food, for this, for that. Put God first in your life so you can hear the still small voice. I know this life is temporary, it's fleeting, but I'm here. And I am to focus on His kingdom, His rule. But He requires different things of us. He really does. And it would be just terrible that a Christian, when God was screaming, these things are going to take place, just put their head in the sand and said, well, it's not going to affect me. Friends, do you realize how many people on the other side of the world believe that, said that? Right now, they're crucifying Christians. They're murdering them. They're burying them. They're drowning them in China. This is going on. I mean, this is going on. There is great persecution of Christians in China and around the world. They're seeing Christians as the problem because they don't want to get along and go along. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to be prepared in your spirit, in your soul, in your body. And realize this, that you're a frontline warrior. Satan, he's seeking whom he may devour, who he may destroy, who he may starve, because they don't believe God. I just don't believe it will ever happen to me. Jeremiah, he's in a pit, mud's up to here. He's the prophet of the Lord, prophet of Jehovah. And he's crying out, he's like, Lord, if you don't save me, I'm going to drown in this mud. He never thought he would be in that well, in that pit, in that mud. He didn't think, I'm a prophet of God. How could this happen? Elijah never thought he was going to be under a broom tree saying, take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Paul never thought he was going to have to escape out a window, okay, because they're going to murder him. I serve the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Lord, you're so powerful, you could call a legion. You could call 5 legions of angels to destroy these men, but God's ways aren't our ways. Expect the unexpected. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, serve the King. Don't forget, you're fighting a spiritual battle and a physical battle. Love your brother as yourself. Do what you know to do. And don't forget, it rains on the just and the unjust. Don't look up into the horizon and see the dark clouds and think, well, it's not going to come over this way when the wind's blowing in your face.